So consumer protection is how we can safeguard consumers to make sure they get a fair deal on what they're entitled to, as well as making sure they're provided with good service. So the importance of consumer protection is obviously, as a consumer, when you're looking for, it doesn't matter what the service is, but obviously certainly sort of works in and around the home. They are often infrequent purchases, they are often expensive. You've got someone in your house, that's quite difficult as well. So you are vulnerable in that marketplace and you're reliant on the trade to help you out, on the person in front of you to help you out. As a business on the other side of that, you need to know what consumers are entitled to make sure you give them what they're entitled to in terms of under the law and actually as just general good customer service. There's loads of resources online. I think as ever is the case nowadays, it's almost too hard not to find it. I think our website is a good first starting point. Our code of conduct in particular has a really good bit at the end around you and the law. Or at the end, I think it's at point 3, but it's around you and the legislation that applies. So that's quite a good place to start if you've got no idea where you think you stand. Beyond that, we work with an organisation called Consumer Friend, and their aim is to make advice for consumer law simple, easy to follow, easy to read, easy to digest, everything sort of learned in 2. So again, if you're limited for time, sat in the van, in between jobs, whatever, really good, quick way of getting a hit. There's also other resources that the government fund called Business Companion, and that can give you a mixture of short and longer form advice as well. So you can kind of pick and choose what you've got time for. And this is where our consumer protection framework really sort of comes into its own. So stuff will go wrong. We're all human. You know, I could make a dinner 100 times and mess it up on the 101st, even though I've done that. And the same applies when you're doing any kind of trade work, is sometimes you encounter the unexpected. The important thing is everyone involved in that dispute has a way of understanding what they're entitled to and putting it right. So we have a 3-stage disputes process where if someone's got a problem with the work that's been done, they raise it with the person doing the work in the first instance, because 99% of the time it can be quite easily fixed. If that doesn't work, we work with our scheme providers, and that's a source of advice and support for businesses to make sure that they have appropriately responded to those concerns that a person might be legitimately raising or might not be legitimately raising. And in that way you can understand what they're entitled to and follow up appropriately. The final stage is we have access to an independent ombudsman, which is completely impartial and will look at the facts of the case and give a judgment either way, because sometimes in the best will in the world, people will come at it with different perspectives, thinking they're entitled to one thing or not entitled to another thing. And that way we can get a clear outcome that can be followed through and that everyone understands where they stand in terms of their consumer rights. It does. It just makes sure everyone gets what they're entitled to and is accountable for what they're accountable for. So you do get sometimes people think they're entitled to more than they're entitled to, and that does happen. So that protects the trader in terms of their part of this. And from a consumer, it's reassurance that if there is a problem, there is a process at hand to make sure you get the right outcome. So we work really closely with our partners, Buckinghamshire and Surrey trading stands, and we have what's called a primary authority relationship. That means we work closely with them around consumer law. They help us with assured advice for businesses and for trades. So if you want standard form contracts, cancellation notices and things like that, we've got templates that you can use immediately. The other thing you can do is to provide some additional reassurance to your customers is that trading standards will also do some additional checks on the background there and give you that additional stamp of approval over and above our own as well. So then you've kind of got double the assurance for your customers and peace of mind. Yeah, it's very low cost. It's very low cost, something like £100. I don't know the exact figure. And when you think about spreading that across the year, across the number of jobs, you're talking pennies in the pound, aren't you, really? It's not a lot. And what you can do is give that reassurance and separate yourself from the competitors. Because also what we do know is in the trade, there is a lot of competition for work, a lot of people trying to demonstrate they're better than each other. But trading standards and TrustMark are 2 particular schemes that you can be a member of that means a lot to consumers. It does. I mean, the main thing is to make sure, coming back to what we said earlier, is when people are looking for work done in their homes, they're vulnerable generally. These are technical, complex bits of work. They couldn't do it themselves. They're reliant. So what you want to be able to do is give them peace of mind and that someone has done some checks for you to take the legwork out. And what you want is a credible way of demonstrating that. And with TrustMark and with trading standards, you've got 2 credible organisations there that you can demonstrate that you've showing that you're the good, you're the good guys and you can be trusted in their home. There's a whole host of veterinary monitoring that goes on. So when they join, they have to join TrustMark through a scheme provider. So a prerequisite is that they are good at their trade and that someone has checked it and they've checked the work at all stages. So it's not necessarily good enough to go, oh, I've got this ticket and that ticket and the other ticket, and no one's ever seen a bit of work. They actually check work at various stages, so beginning, middle and completion, reviews, all those things. So they do that as well as all the competency checks and all the certifications that someone needs to have. That's all done on the initial registration and regularly monitored throughout the course of their registration with TrustMark. So you get that ongoing peace of mind that not only is it robust at the start, but it continues to be robust all the way through. It's not a one and done scenario. Generally speaking, to some extent it's linked to the risk, but broadly speaking, annual checks. And there'll be ongoing monitoring that goes beyond that. So obviously we keep an eye on things. Obviously scheme providers are expected to keep an eye on things. So that might be complaints, reviews, all those sorts of things. So there is a general watching brief kept across the whole thing, in addition to all the proactive stuff that goes on. So not only have you got these sort of almost formal audit points, but there are other checkpoints where people might step in and take a look as well. And not only is it putting mind at rest, but obviously it gives you an opportunity to get a pipeline of work to help build your reputation, to demonstrate to others that you are credible. And it's not just you saying that, that's an independent government-endorsed organisation like us and a credible organisation like Trading Standards also saying the same. So it's not just, oh, I'm good. Other people have confirmed it.